Having an emergency fund is good advice. I want to say that clearly upfront because the title of this video is maybe provocative, and I mean it precisely, not broadly. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a liquid, accessible account. Standard recommendation, right? Solid reasoning behind it. I also have one. Most financially literate people I know have one. But here's the thing I've been sitting with, and I don't hear it discussed very often in honest terms. There is a version of the emergency fund that stops being a safety net and starts being something else. A psychological anchor. A reason not to move. A comfortable number in a savings account that creates the feeling of security without the actual substance of it, while quietly costing you in 2 different ways every single month it sits there. Now that's what I want to talk about today. An emergency fund has one job: to prevent a financial shock from becoming a financial crisis. Maybe your car breaks down or you need unexpected medical work. Maybe you lose your job and can't find another one. In each of these cases, having liquid cash available means you don't have to sell investments at a bad time, or you don't have to take on high interest debt, or, well, make decisions from a position of desperation. That's the whole purpose. It is not a wealth building tool. It is not supposed to earn a return. It is like insurance. The cost is premium. You pay for protection you hope you never need. Now, the question worth asking, which almost nobody does once the fund is established, is how much insurance do I actually need? And am I carrying more than that because of the maths or because of something else? Now, the 2 ways it actually costs you. Cost 1 is the financial cost, and the math here is simple. Cash sitting in a standard savings account earns interest, but typically below the rate of inflation, which means in real terms, in purchasing power, it is losing value every year, slowly but consistently. Now, here's what that looks like concretely. Say you're holding $12,000 in a savings account, earning 2% annual interest in an environment where inflation is running at 3%. $120 a year doesn't sound like much, but over 10 years of holding more than you need, it compounds into a real number. And that's before considering what the excess could be earning if it were invested instead. And that's the financial cost. Most people who think carefully about money already know this. But the second cost is the one I find more interesting. Cost 2 is psychological, and it operates in a way that's really hard to quantify, but it's still, I think, more significant. So a large, comfortable cash balance creates a feeling of security that can actively suppress risk-taking behavior. Not like reckless risk, but the kind involved in starting something. Maybe investing more aggressively or making a career decision from a position of real options rather than fear. When you have 12 months of expenses sitting in a savings account, it is very easy to feel financially prepared in a way that doesn't require you to do anything else. The number is comfortable. Perhaps there's even no anxiety about it, so the urgency disappears. And the project you are going to start, like the investment you are going to make, gets quietly deferred because the pressure that would have moved you is cushioned by a number that feels like enough. I want to name this psychological mechanism a bit more specifically because, again, I've experienced it myself and I think it's worth saying out loud. There is a certain size of emergency fund, different from everyone, but you know when you have it, that feels like you have arrived somewhere, like a checkpoint has been reached. And once the feeling settles in, it becomes very comfortable to stay. The problem is that arrived at the point and feeling safe, that's not the same thing. An emergency fund protects you from shocks, but it does not protect you from inflation. It does not protect you from a career that becomes untenable. It does not protect you from the slow erosion of a financial situation that isn't building toward anything. So the fund that makes you feel safe can be the same fund that makes you feel like you don't need to do anything more. Now, this is the version of the emergency fund making you poor that I find most honest. Not the maths. The maths are real but manageable. The psychology. The way that a comfortable cash buffer can quietly remove the productive discomfort that motivates building. Now, I'm not arguing for financial anxiety as a motivator. Anxiety is a terrible strategy, trust me. But there's a difference between anxiety-driven urgency and clarity-driven intention. The oversized emergency fund doesn't just remove the anxiety, it can also remove the intention along with it. So, how much is actually enough? The honest answer is it really depends, but here is a framework that I find more useful than the standard 3 to 6 months. Your emergency fund size should be a function of 4 things: your job security, your income diversity, your dependence, and your risk tolerance. Again, not your anxiety tolerance, that is different. So, if you have a stable job in a resilient industry, no one is depending on you, and you have at least one other income stream starting to develop, 3 months is probably sufficient. The standard advice was written for a more precarious situation than you may be actually in. But if you're a freelancer with variable income, maybe you have some dependents, maybe you're in a sector with real volatility, 6 months or more makes sense. The insurance is proportionate to the actual risk. So the question to ask is not, does this number feel comfortable? The question is, does this number reflect my actual risk profile? Or does it reflect how much uncertainty I can emotionally tolerate? Those are different questions, right? And the second one, we gotta be honest about. So I have a small inheritance, money that came to me unexpectedly a couple of years ago. Most of it is invested. Some of it is sitting in a savings account as my emergency fund. Now, when I apply my own framework honestly, stable income, no dependence, building a second income stream, 3 months is probably the right number for me, right? But I'm holding 4. That extra month is not there because I calculated that it was necessary. It's there because reducing it felt like removing something, a psychological buffer as much as a financial one. Now, I haven't moved it yet, and I'm being honest about it here. But I have started asking myself whether the extra month is serving my actual risk profile or just my preference for a comfortable number. That's a different question and has a totally different answer. So here's your homework for the next week. Look at your emergency fund, if you have it, and ask, is every month of expenses in here justified by my actual risk profile? Or is some of it there because the number feels comfortable? Or maybe it's just a round and pretty number. Maybe I haven't thought about it since I started the emergency fund. If it's the first, great, nothing to change. If it's justified. If it's the second, because it feels comfortable. Now, you don't have to move it today, but knowing the honest answer to your situation is the beginning of being intentional rather than just comfortable. And remember, comfortable and intentional are not the same thing. Now, I will update this when I made a decision about my own fund, whether I move the extra month or decide the psychological value is worth keeping. Either way, if I do decide, I will also share the reasoning. And these are the kinds of decisions that don't have objectively correct answers. They just have more or less honest ones. Okay, let me know in the comments how you do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!